So shalom and greetings, and welcome to another Sons of Isaac Israelite Congregation Closing Sabbath class. Tonight's class lesson is going to be on, did Jesus Christ break the Sabbath day? We're going to reiterate some of the laws upon the Sabbath day, and we're going to go into the New Testament and actually see that Christ break the Sabbath day, as some generally teach and believe, especially in the philosophy of Christianity, right? Did the Sabbath day change over unto so-called Sunday, or did it always remain what we know as Saturday? All right. So understanding this, first and foremost, we do not, our fathers did not have the names, right, of of the days of the week, right? So they had them in the Hebrew pronunciation of of the days of the week, or in layman's terms, day one, day two, day three, day four, day five, day six, day seven, right? So you count 7 days, okay? So now, 7 days, all right? So now you see that the seventh day was given to us as a day of rest, all right? And we're going to get that account in the book of Genesis chapter 2 and we're going to start at verse 1, all right? So, of course, we know in the beginning, right, it took the Most High, right, 6 days, all right, to create the heavens and the earth and all that is within the earth, right? And on one particular day, the Lord finished his works and he rested from the creations in which he had made, right? So now let's read this. So thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day, God ended his works which he had made. So you see that the Most High ended all of his works which he ended up making, right? So then it says, and he rested on the seventh day from all his works which he had made, and God blessed the seventh day. So now you see that he blessed this day. He blessed the seventh day. All right. And it says, and sanctified it, because that in it he rested from all his works which God created and made. So now you see that it shows you right here that the Heavenly Father says that he rested. And there's a reason why he rested, because he rested from the works which he performed within the 6 days. All right. And on the seventh day, he designated this day as a day of rest. So the Lord shows you that at least once out of the week, you have a day to rest. All right. So the Lord gave this to all mankind at one point, right? To where they were able to keep the Sabbath day. All right. Keep it holy, keep it, keep it hollow, all of that. All right. But you see, as mankind began to deviate from the path of the Creator, they began to do what? They began to go off and they began to work on those days. All right. They began to work on the holiest day of the year and continue working. Okay. And you'll see that many of the nations, man, they fell off from that. They fell off from keeping the Sabbath day, or they began to alter the Sabbath day to fit their own, purpose or agenda, right? So just like we see in today's time, right, in modern day, you know what I'm saying, in 2018, we see that the Christians believe that the Sabbath day is what? Is Sunday. Sunday is not the Sabbath day of the Lord, all right? Sunday would actually be the first day of the week. You don't read about the ancient Israelites resting upon the first day. They rested on the seventh day. Okay, so they knew from what we would call so-called Sunday all the way to about the so-called Friday. That was their time to actually do all of their works and everything that they needed to do. And then on the seventh day, they were actually able to rest. All right. So I'm gonna read verse 3 again. So it says, and God blessed the seventh day, sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his works which God created and made. All right. So he rested from all of the works which he had created. All right. So now let's go to the book of Leviticus chapter 20. All right, there's many scriptures that go in on the Sabbath day, but we're just going to cover the basic scriptures. All right. So we're just showing you it's a law, okay, and how the Messiah understood that this was a law, all right, from the very beginning, okay. So now Leviticus chapter 23. So we know that Jesus Christ, who we call Yahweh Shai Mashiach, right? In the Hebrew, we know that he kept the commandments. All right. We know that he was an advocate for the commandments and taught the commandments of God. He taught judgment. All right. He taught that, brothers ought to, forgive one another. He taught, the aspects of business, right? Nation building, etc. Right. We know that he taught all of those areas of the law, right? Just as Moses taught the children of Israel. All right. So, Leviticus chapter 23. So this is Leviticus chapter 23 is dealing with the feast days of the Lord. All right. So this is why the Most High set it up here in the law, right? So where he gave us a list of all of the holy feast days that we would be able to keep, from the new moon all the way to, from Passover, the new moons, the weekly Sabbath, so on and so forth. So when I say the weekly Sabbath, I'm going to show you that it's right here in Leviticus chapter 23. So now it says here in chapter 23 and verse 3, it says, 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest and holy convocation. Ye shall do no work therein. That is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings, right? So he's establishing this with the children of Israel. He's letting them know that this is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings. So wherever you're at throughout the land of Israel, or whatever portion of the world you may dwell in, the Sabbath day still stands. All right. So now, just like they had the Sabbath day during the time of Adam, remember the Sabbath day still stood, man. It was unaltering and unchanging. All right. So, so he's showing us, okay. So he shows you that 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh is a Sabbath of rest. It is a holy convocation. Holy convocation meaning that it is a holy gathering. All right. He says, "Ye shall do no work therein." So no work is to be done upon the Sabbath day of the Lord, right? And so he says, so from any type of field work, uh, servile work, dealing with, you being under the oppression of your masters, you know what I mean? Or, you know, um, you know, duties and things like that of the house, man, all of those things have to be basically in order, man, before the seventh day. All right. Get all of those things done and out of the way before the seventh day of the Lord. So it says, "Ye shall do no work therein. It is a Sabbath of the Lord." So it is a Sabbath of Yahweh. All right. This is his Sabbath. Okay. In all your dwellings. Right. So this is a day that we worship the Heavenly Father and we give him his praise. All right. So remember, this is a day for us to rest, but it's also a day for us, man, to acknowledge the Heavenly Father. Though we do acknowledge him throughout the 6 days, all right? But this is a day where we come together, all right? And we worship the Father, man, in spirit and in truth. Real quick, let's go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 66. Isaiah chapter 66. And the Lord's going to show you that we come and we worship on this day. So Isaiah 66 and verse 23, and it says, "And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord." So he's showing you that that this is a day that we worship the Heavenly Father. All right. That's just as plain as and as simple as it gets. Okay. So now, so now going back to Leviticus, so the Lord shows you this, and then he shows you in verse 4 that now there are feasts, you know what I'm saying, that we don't keep weekly. All right. So the weekly Sabbath is like a feast that we keep weekly. And then you see that there are seasonal feasts that we have to keep. Okay. And these feasts are basically yearly. All right. They occur in their proper seasons. All right. Passover occurs in the spring. All right. The new moon occurs in every month, you know what I'm saying, of the 12 months. All right. So that's the celebration of our months. Then we have from Passover, we have Pentecost. Then from Pentecost, in between that we have memorial assignment. Then from memorial assignment we have, what is it? Memorial of blowing the trumpets, right? Which is the new moon of the that marks the end of the year, right? I already mentioned first fruit. So, then we have Feast of Tabernacles, we have Day of Atonement, we have Feast of Dedication, we have Nicanor, Feast of Nicanor, Purim. We have those feasts that we do keep in their particular seasons. All right. So the Sabbath operates differently from the actual feast days. All right. The Sabbath day is weekly. All right. That's what the Sabbath is. The Sabbath is weekly. Okay. So then the feast days, they're yearly. All right. They're kept in their appropriate seasons. All right. So now, we says, so now there are things that we should not do on this upon the Sabbath day, right? And in Leviticus, let's go to Exodus 35. So remember, make sure that you mark these things down so that you'll know, you know what I'm saying? When we get to the New Testament, did any of that change? All right. Did the Messiah change any of those things? You see that? So by him growing up in a house, you know what I'm saying, a mother and a father that was, an Israelite, all right, did any of that change? Okay. So I'm speaking from the Christian perspective, all right. How they think that he's not the son, that he's not the son of Joseph and all that. I know he's the son of Joseph. I know that he comes from a literal bloodline, all right. So now this is in Exodus 35 and verse 3. Ye shall kindle no fire throughout your habitations upon the Sabbath day. So what does this mean? This is talking about the aspect of cooking. All right, heating foods. All right, it is not permitted for you to do so. All right, that is work. Okay, that is a form of a burden that man take places upon himself. All right, that is not to be done. All right, so remember, we don't use microwaves, we don't use stoves, we don't use any type of electric heating devices, hot plates, crock pots. We don't use those things. All right. So now, if one takes a bath and chooses to take a hot bath, then there's nothing wrong with that because you're not eating out of that tub. Now, if you want to put a bowl, you want to put some noodles in there, you know what I mean? You want to try to boil some chicken and all that, then that's when it becomes a problem. In a tub. It's hot water in the tub. You said I can heat the hot water. No, you're doing it so that you can clean yourself. All right. Some of you need to scrub them germs off your body. So, so it says, "Ye shall kindle no fire throughout your habitations upon the Sabbath day." So basically, you got to make common sense of certain things. All right. So then from there, let's stay in Exodus and let's go to chapter 16 so that we can verify what's being said here in verse 35. All right. So remember, the Levitical priests, they were the only ones that still were permitted to actually cook upon the Sabbath day. Why? Because they performed the aspect of sacrifices. I'll show you that in just a second. So Exodus 16, chapter 16. Exodus chapter 16, and we're going to start at verse 22. Excuse me. And it says, "And it came to pass that on the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for one man. And all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses, and he said unto them, This is that which the Lord hath said, Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord." So you see that it is a holy Sabbath, meaning it is set apart, all right, from all other days. Remember, in the book of Exodus, chapter 20, and verses 8 through 11, it says what? Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy, all right? 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy works, but the 7th day, which is the Sabbath of rest, right? So remember, he said that the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest. So 6 days you work, then on that last day, guess what? That 7th day, that's when you rest. All right. So it says, "Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto Yahweh. Bake that which ye shall bake today." You see that? Plain and simple, right here. He said, bake that which you shall bake today, meaning that the food that you're going to eat, right? So remember, they were eating manna at this time. So he said, gather the manna that you need and bake it. All right. And then he says, and seethe that which excuse me, seethe that ye will seethe, right? Seethe meaning boil. Okay. So if you were boiling something, you know what I mean, then you make sure that you boiled it for the day. All right. So if you're boiling chicken, you boiling anything, make sure that you boiled it for that day. All right. He says that ye seethe that ye will seethe, and that which remaineth overlay up for you to be kept until the morning. All right. So that's why they had to keep it. You know, they would basically save all of what they cooked, right? And they would lay it up until the morning, right? So remember, so the Sabbath starts at nightfall, right? And then the second part of the Sabbath occurs when the sun rises. All right. So that's why it says save, cook what you're gonna cook for the night, and then lay over what you're gonna have for in the morning time. All right. So then it says, and they laid it up till the morning as Moses bade, and it did not stink, neither was there any worms therein, right? So when they obeyed the commandment of Moses, right, it did not rot, okay, and it did not stink, and neither were there maggots coming out of it, all right, because they obeyed. And it says, and they followed the process properly. And it says, and Moses said, eat that today, for today is a Sabbath unto the Lord. Today ye shall not find it in the field. So he said, you are not going to find anything in the field. All right. So then he says, 6 days ye shall gather it, but on the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none. So he's like, on the Sabbath day, you're not going to find anything, because remember, on the sixth day, right? On the sixth day, you were supposed to gather as much as you needed. All right. But if you did not, then what was going to happen? Well, let's read and let's find out what happened. All right. So then it says, 6 days ye shall gather it, but on the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none. So you're not gonna find none. And it came to pass that there went out some of the people on the seventh day for to gather, and they found none. So you see that? So he said they didn't find anything. Why? Remember, Moses told them what they were supposed to do. He said you weren't gonna find none if you go out there. So that shows you that many of the people, some of the people, they did not listen. They did not hearken. They did not believe, or they behind just wasn't there, or to receive instruction. All right. So we said on the seventh day there shall be none. So now they're gonna be hungry for the rest of the day. You see that? So now they have nothing. All right. So they made that which they were made, but then they didn't have enough. All right. And now their family has to suffer because of their poor decision. So now it says, and the Lord said unto Moses, how long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws? You see that? So then Yahweh had to let Moses know, how long y'all gonna refuse to keep my laws and my commandments? He says, see, for that the Lord hath given you the Sabbath, therefore he giveth you on the sixth day the bread of 2 days, right? So he's showing you how you properly prepare for the Sabbath, all right? So he said he's properly giving you enough food so that it'll last you for 2 days, all right? So guess what? You have enough food for that night, and then you have enough food for the morning, right? Until excuse me, until the Sabbath is over. He says, abide ye every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the seventh day. So that's why he said, man, make sure everybody stay in their tent, man. And don't go out looking for food on the seventh day. Remember, you have to, that is what you're doing, is that is a burden. All right. Because you're going to trying to gather food. You cannot do that. Excuse me. All right. So this was the instruction, man. So this was the instruction, man, that Moses was giving to the people, right? Many of them did not hearken. All right. So this is what they were told. Now let's go to the book of Nehemiah, chapter 10. Or actually, what was the scripture that what was the scripture that I said I was going to go into next? I forgot. Oh yeah, talking about the Levitical priests, right? And how they had to sacrifice on the Sabbath day. Let's go to the book of Numbers. Numbers chapter 29. Actually 28. So it's 28 because this is going into the actual priesthood. Yeah, so this is going into the sacrifices, right? So I'm gonna start 28 in verse 1. And it says, And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel, and say unto them, My offering and my bread for my sacrifices made by fire, for a sweet savor unto me, shall ye observe to offer unto me in their due season. All right. Thou shalt say, This is the offering made by fire, which ye shall offer unto Yahweh, 2 lambs of the first year without spot, without spot, day by day, for a continual burnt offering. Right, so they had to. These are sacrifices that they had to make day by day. All right, every single day. Okay, so this is showing you, man, how strenuous the Levitical priest job was. All right, so they had to make sure that they were on point. Okay, so now I'm going to drop down and I'm going to read verse 9. All right, so now this is dealing with offerings on the Sabbath. It says, And on the Sabbath day, 2 lambs of the first year without spot, and 2/10 deal of tenth deal of flour for the meat offering, mingled with oil, and the drink offering thereof. This is the burnt offering of every Sabbath, beside the continual burnt offerings and his drink offerings. Look at that. So on the Sabbaths, there were sacrifices being conducted, right? So then you'll understand, right? When we go into the New Testament, you'll see what Christ was talking about. So this is all contained in the law. Now check this out. So now when you read verse 11, that's talking about the new moons, all right? The beginning of your months. There were sacrifices offered in the beginning of your months, all right? There were sacrifices that we had to offer on Passover. There were sacrifices that we had to offer on the first and the last day. Same thing with Memorial of Trumpets, all the way down to the Feast of Tabernacle. Even Day of Atonement, sacrifices had to be conducted. Uh, Feast of Tabernacles, like I said, sacrifices had to be conducted. All right, so this was the priest's job. So then, when we read what Christ is talking about in Matthew 12, when he says, about the Levitical priests being blameless, how they, kindle fire on the Sabbath, man, and they're blameless. All right, but we'll get that in just a minute. All right, so let's go to the book of Nehemiah, chapter 10. Nehemiah chapter 10, and we're gonna get verse 31. Nehemiah 10, right after Ezra. What happened? Go ahead, sit down, son. Sit down. So now, Nehemiah 10 and 31, it says, so, yeah. So it says, And if the people of the land bring ware or any victual on the Sabbath day to sell, that we would not buy it of them on the Sabbath day or on the holy days, and that we would leave the 7th year and the exaction of every debt, right? So now this was what you would call. So now this was the covenant that they made, all right, upon the Sabbath day. Okay. So they weren't able to. If any of the nations, right, tried to bring, victuals to sell and all of that, then they would basically say, no, we're not buying that. All right. So this was a covenant that the people made. All right, not to buy all of that stuff. So when you read in Nehemiah 13, right, you'll see that the people, they broke that covenant, man, and that's why Nehemiah was so angry with them. All right, because remember, you break the Sabbath day, you bring evil upon yourself. All right, that's what happens when the Sabbath day is broken. Evil is brought upon, you know what I'm saying, that people, that nation, all right, or that person. Okay, that breaks the Sabbath of the Lord our God, right? So let's get the book of Exodus 31. Exodus 31, and then I'm gonna get Numbers as well. I'm gonna go back to Numbers. But here goes some more scriptures too. Um, this is Leviticus 24 and 8, when it says, "Every Sabbath he shall set in order before the Lord continually, be taken from the children of Israel by an everlasting covenant." Leviticus 24 and 8. You can just put chapter 24. Even the land had a Sabbath. All right. So remember, every 7 or like every 6 years, right? So the people were able to work for 6 years. And then in the seventh year, the people had to refrain from working the land. All right. So that means, all of the sowing that they would do, they couldn't do it, you know what I'm saying, for an entire year. So that's because the land needed its rest. All right. So you could reap from the land for 6 years straight. But that seventh year, you couldn't do anything. So that means, according to the instructions that Moses had gave, you had to basically reap for, I believe, for like a total of almost 2 years. All right, so that you'll be able to like have enough food for yourself stored up until that year's expired. So the seventh year, you couldn't even gather from the crop. Couldn't do that. Couldn't reap. Couldn't do none of that. Couldn't even gather. You see, because remember, you're letting everything rest. Everything has to restore itself. The fruit on the tree, remember, it should be growing like to immense sizes. It shouldn't just be just some little bitty old piece of fruit in your hand. It even shows you in the book of Numbers, man, when the children of Israel, they went, remember, they went into the land of Canaan, man, and they brought a cluster of grapes, man, the size of basketballs, and they were carrying on their shoulders. They had to carry it on a branch on their shoulders back to the people, showing like, look, the fruit of the land is plenteous. You see that? But that's because the land was able to, was able to reap at its fullest. You see that? But the Most High had to get the Canaanites up out of the land, all right, because they were not keeping it the way it should have been kept. Okay. And then you see when our fathers, as they got the land and they stopped doing according to what the law said, then the Most High had to get them up out of there so that the land could have its rest. All right. You just can't reap, 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 reap. That means you're missing that seventh year. You know what I'm saying? And you're just continuing to reap on there. How is the earth going to replenish itself? You know what I mean? And remember, this just wasn't a law for Israel alone, but this was for the entire earth. But not all nations followed the policy of the Most High, man. They didn't follow the laws of the Lord. So so now this is what scripture? Oh yeah, Exodus 31. Exodus 31. Let me pull it up. Yeah, Exodus 31, and we'll start at verse 16. 31 and 16. And it says, actually, we'll start at verse 13. And it says, "Speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, Verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep. For it is a sign between me and you through your generations, that ye may know that I am Yahweh, that doeth sanctify you. Ye shall keep the Sabbath therefore, for it is holy unto you. Every one that defileth it shall surely be put to death." All right. So we showing you, man, he said, that verily his Sabbaths ye shall keep. remember, there are signs between us and the Most High. All right. So nobody else on earth, man, is keeping the Sabbath like we're supposed, like we're keeping it. Uh-oh. So then it says, so it says, it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that Yahweh doeth sanctify you. So remember, it says sanctify meaning to cleanse us. He says, ye shall keep the Sabbath therefore, for it is holy unto you. So he said, ye shall keep the Sabbath, for it is holy, what? Unto you. So remember, the Sabbath is holy unto us. It's not holy unto everybody, because everybody don't hold the Sabbath sacred. So then he says, and everyone that defileth it shall surely be put to death. Okay, so now the judgment at that particular time was what? We're going to find out. All right, so when we go to the book of Numbers, chapter 15 and 32, I will show you the judgment that was placed upon somebody that broke the Sabbath. Okay, so now it says, for whosoever doeth any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days may work be done, but in the seventh is the Sabbath of rest, holy to the Lord. Whosoever doeth any work in the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death. Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations. You see that? So it's showing you that the children of Israel, man, they're supposed to keep the Sabbath through what? Through their generations. All right. The children of Israel are still. I just read verses 15 and I just read verse 16. So verse Exodus 31. I just read 13. I just read 13 through 16. So it says, wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations for a perpetual covenant. You see that? He says for a perpetual covenant. And it says, it is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. So you see, it's a sign between us and the Most High, man, forever. So when we keep the Sabbath, that shows us, man, that the Most High is still with us. All right. So he says, for in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. So that's what it's supposed to do, man. It's supposed to give us that revitalization, man, that refreshing, when we keep the Sabbath, all right? So it's like, man, we getting beat up 6 days, and next thing you know, the Sabbath is supposed to be a joyous occasion, man, for us to come together, man, and be refreshed, all right? So when it says, and he gave unto Moses, when he had made an end with communing with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tables of the testimony, tables of stone written with the finger of God. All right. So you see that finger of God is dealing with Christ. All right. So now let us go to the book of Numbers 15. All right. So you see how sacred the Sabbath is a sign between us and the Most High. So that's why it is not, the Sabbath is always to be kept. You see that? So now you got to make sure that you key into that law. All right. Key into that law, because that's very understanding. I mean, that's very, how can I put it? That very understanding will give us the understanding of what's in the New Testament, right? And when it pertains to Christ. So in Numbers chapter 15, and we're going to read verse 32. All right, check this out. So now it says, and while the children of Israel were in the wilderness, they found a man that gathered sticks upon the Sabbath day, right? So remember, he was supposed to do all of that prior to the seventh day. Remember, you're supposed to rest from all of that. 6 days, you had everything. You had enough ample time to do that. All right. You're not supposed to gather no sticks upon the seventh day, on the Sabbath day. He says, and they that found him gathering sticks brought him unto Moses and Aaron. Right. So he probably was doing this on the low, gathering sticks on the low, right? Probably didn't prepare or gather enough sticks upon the 6th day. All right. And you know what? He fell short. So now he's sitting there, damn, I need firewood. So then what does he do? He goes out and he starts collecting sticks, and he got discovered. Okay. He says, and they that found him gathering sticks brought him unto Moses and Aaron and unto all the congregation. So they're like, hey, we found this brother sitting here, man, gathering sticks upon the Sabbath day. So remember, that's what you were supposed to do. You found somebody breaking the Sabbath, you're supposed to expose them. See that? So that's what they did. All right. Now, if they would have just sat there and looked at them and said, "Oh, we breaking the Sabbath," you know what, man? That's all right. Go ahead, handle your business. It's not supposed to be like that. Somebody's breaking the Sabbath. You're supposed to make sure that you expose that person, man, and make sure that in this time, in this day and age, you got to correct the person because we can't put nobody to death. You know what I'm saying? He can put himself spiritually to death. You know, when that time comes, right? Or evil to come upon that man when that time comes, but at the same time, the Lord said, you have 6 days to do all of that. All right. So it says, and they put him inward because he was not declared what should be done with him. So now what happened? He said they put him inward, so they locked him up. All right. So then it says, so now they're having counsel to see what is going to be done with this man. It says, and Yahweh said unto Moses, the man shall surely be put to death. So remember, that was the judgment, right? According to the laws of Moses, right? That was the judgment. All right. He was to be put to death. So now it says, and all the congregation shall stone him with stones without the camp. So outside of the camp, he's gonna have to die. He's gonna have to be stoned with stones. That is the judgment, all right, for breaking the Sabbath. So he was found doing it willfully. All right. So now it says, and all the congregation brought him without the camp and stoned him with stones, and he died. And Yahweh commanded Moses. All right. So then you'll understand why the Lord told the children of Israel to put fringes and the ribbon of blue upon their garments. You see that? So that they do not forget the covenant which they have established with the Heavenly Father. They do not forget the laws and the commandments that they have made with the Heavenly Father. All right. So it's more than just a style for us, right? It is supposed to be a sign of remembrance. Okay. So that's why we wear those fringes and the ribbon of blue. All right. It is for us to remember that we are under the covenant of the Lord. All right. And then we're supposed to remember and to keep all his commandments. All right. So that's why every time we look down upon our shirt or upon our garment, we're supposed to make sure that we acknowledge, like, oh, yep, you know what? I'm under the covenant of Yah. I'm under the covenant of Yah. Yep. I got to make sure that I keep the Sabbath day holy. I don't defile it or profane it. I got to make sure, you know what I'm saying, that I'm on point, man, to keep these commandments throughout those 6 days. All right. So that's why he had to speak to the children of Israel afterwards. All right. So that they remember. All right. Because our people tend to forget. Our people got a short-term memory or something. All right. So that's why it's so important, man, for us to make sure that we keep the Sabbath. All right. So remember, the Sabbath is a sign between Yah and Israel forever. All right. So the Most High, he gonna make sure he chilling. You know what I'm saying? But yet for us, you know, it's our responsibility and it's our duty to make sure that we keep it the way we're supposed to according to the law. All right. So now let's go to the book of Matthews now. Let's see. Let's get this. Did Christ change the Sabbath day? So that's something we got to find out. Did Christ change it? I gotta look this up too, because it's on my mind too. Let's look at this. Catholic Church. Well, first I'm gonna get the Constantine. Constantine. Changes Sabbath. So of course, remember, in the early church, right? The early church father, they kept the Sabbath day based upon the seventh day. All right. So here in America, right, and in Rome, it was called Saturday. All right. So that was the name in which, that was the pagan name which they gave to the seventh day, Saturday. We called it Sabbath. All right. So we understood when you said Sabbath, right, or the seventh day, we know that you spoke about the day of rest. Okay. So here I just looked this up. I just looked this up, man. I just Wikipedia. So it says early Christians continued to pray and rest on the seventh day, right? By the second century AD, some Christians also observed Sunday, the day of the week which Jesus had risen from the dead on with the Holy Spirit and came to the apostles. That's not true. Christ did not. Well, Christ, he did not rise on the first day. All right, he had already risen. Okay, before the first day. All right, but it's just showing you right here, right, that early Christians did continue to rest on the seventh day. All right, let's continue looking it up. So now it says the Sabbath day in Christianity is the inclusion or adoption in Christianity of the Sabbath day. Established within Judaism through the Mosaic Law, Christians inherited a Sabbath practice that reflected two great precepts: the commandment to remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, and God blessing the seventh day, quote unquote Saturday, as a day of rest in the Genesis creation narrative, and declared as made for man by Jesus. He says the first of these provisions was associated in Judaism with the assembly of the people to worship in the temple in Jerusalem or in synagogues, meaning meeting places. So it says the position now dominated in Western Christianity is that observance of the Lord's Day, Sunday, supplants or superseded the Sabbath commandment. In the former, celebrated the Christian community's deliverance from the captivity to sin, Satan, and worldly passions. All right. So now, so like it says over here in Westernized Christianity, right? They absorb the Lord's Day as Sunday. All right. So they saying that the Lord's Day Sunday, right, which is supposed to be the first day, supersedes the Sabbath day commandment, which is a load of crap. All right. Absolutely. All right. This is man's religion. Okay. This is not Yah's. This is not Yah's commandment. All right. So remember, that's what it goes back to what Christ was talking about, the precepts of men. You know what I mean? As you're establishing the precepts of men. All right. So it says early Christians observed the seventh day and prayed in prayer and rest. It says, but they also gathered on the first day. By the fourth century, Christians were officially observing the first day, Sunday, as their day of rest, not the seventh, right? So, so they're saying that Christians began to gather. Why? Because of the First Corinthians, I believe, chapter 16 and verse 2, where Paul says, when you come together on the first day, you know what I'm saying, take up collection, something like that. I believe it's First Corinthians 16. Let us go and check. It's verse 2.
It says in verse 1, now concerning the collection for the faith, I have given orders to the churches of Galilee.
Yeah, that's it.
Even so, do you. On the first day of the week, let every one of you lay by him in store, as God has proposed, that there be no gathering when I come.
Yep.
And when I come, whomsoever you shall prove by your letters, then will I send to bring you liberty unto Jerusalem.
Right, that's it. But that's why he said, upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay by him in store as God hath preceded him. So he's basically talking about taking up a collection. That's all. So he's like, y'all come together, y'all get collection, man. So for you to provide for each other, for those who are fortunate.
That was never supposed to be done on the Sabbath.
No, they did not. They did not take up collection upon the Sabbath day of the Lord. They did it after. They did it on the first day. All right. So all of the money and the affairs, they took care of that upon the first day. And then I do it upon the seventh day. Remember.
So congregations that do it now, they're in violation.
Yes, they are. They shouldn't be taking up collection upon the seventh day. See that? So, you know what I'm saying? All of that, that is to cease. But the first day, that's when you start handling the business with your money, taking up collections, so on and so forth. All right. Yeah. So handling money. So, you know, that's why some of them, they have the drop box where, you know, you may not have time during the week. All right. I already prepared it here. I'm just dropping it in the box. And then that's it. You know what I mean? Then they collect that money after the Sabbath. Yeah. After the Sabbath's over. Remember, the day begins when? A new day begins when? At sunfall. I mean, at sunset. So the first day of the week, actually, technically, like it is right now, this is the first day of the week. All right, this is Sunday. So now you can take a collection. Or if you want to do it in the morning, you can do it when sun rises. All right. So so let's continue reading this. So it says a Sabbatarian movement within Oriental Orthodoxy began in the 12th century in Ethiopia. Well, we don't need that. We don't need that. We don't need that. I want to get to Constantine. Let me get to Constantine. It's not telling me anything about Constantine. Hold on. It's going into Latter-day Saints. Some of this we'll just cover at another time and give you deeper detail. But let's continue. So now let's go to the book of Matthew chapter 5. All right. So remember, chapter 5 and verse 17. So remember, Christ did not come to change any of the law. He made that perfectly clear. He said, think not I have come to destroy the law or the prophets. Matthew 5 and 17, and it says, think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. So he says he's not come to destroy, but he's come to fulfill. All right. He says, for verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, not one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. All right. So he says, not one jot nor one tittle shall in no wise pass until all be fulfilled. So showing that everything has not been fulfilled just yet. So that means the law is still going to be in existence, right? Let's get Romans real quick. Romans 7 and 1. Show you again. It says, know ye not, brethren, for I speak to them that know the law, how the law hath dominion over a man as long as he liveth. Right? So we're asking the question, don't you know that the law has dominion over a man as long as he lives? Are you going to say yes or no? You're going to say yes, because that's the law does. It has dominion over all men, right? The laws of homosexuality still stand. The laws on bestiality, all type of immoral sexual sin, all of those laws still stand, man. You see that? The feast days, those laws still apply, still stand. You see that? So even for some, man, the laws of sacrifice still apply if you don't believe in Christ. So, you know, the law has dominion over a man as long as he lives. All right. So, you know, I don't know. To me, that you're not a complete Torah keeper unless you killing them animals. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's just what it says. You taking the word literally. You don't believe that there's, you don't believe in what you call a quote unquote JC or Yahushua. Then that means you need to be taking this book literally. That means you need to be killing them animals. That means that's how you're supposed to be. What? That's how you're supposed to be atoning for your sin. All right. So now, so now, as it says, let's go to the book of Saint. Let's go to the book of Saint John now. Well, actually, let's finish that up in Matthew. So he says, for whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. So whosoever shall do and teach the law, statutes, and commandments, they shall be called greater in the kingdom of heaven. Christ did not go against this principle, that he given the understanding of. All right. He did not go against this. Okay, so he's showing you right here, man, that yes, the laws still do stand. Paul even still shows you that the laws still do stand. The laws still have dominion over all men as long as they live, especially if you are an Israelite uh, in this truth, man. The laws have dominion over you. Okay, so one that believes that they no longer have to keep the Sabbath day, then you're wrong. All right, the Sabbath day still has to be kept because Christ kept it. Okay, it did not change, or it did not change after Christ died. All right, and there's proof of that in the Bible itself that it did not change after he died. You see, it began to change when men began to change the doctrine of the scriptures. All right, they began to push aside the laws and the commandments of God, man, and teach the precepts of men, to the entire earth. All right, so let's go to the book of Saint John, Saint John chapter 19. St. John chapter 19, and we'll get verse 31, and it says, the Jews therefore, because it was the preparation that the bodies should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, for the Sabbath day was an high holy day, right? So, the Jews did not want to leave the bodies, the bodies of Yahushua and the malefactors upon the crosses because, remember what defiles the land? The land is defiled by blood. So they didn't want to have anything to defile the Sabbath day. All right. So remember when it talks about the preparation is actually that sixth day. All right, from what we would call Thursday night and Friday morning or Friday. You know what I'm saying? That would be what you would call the sixth day. All right. So that's kind of how you have to look at it, man. In today's standards, right? Esau says a day begins at 12 midnight. All right, that's when a new day is. All right, or when a new day begins. But according to Scripture, is at sundown. All right, Scriptures show that at sundown that is when the Sabbath begins. Okay, and it ends at the next day, sundown. All right. So in between that, there's a day. All right. So you have a night, and then you have the day. All right. The first 12 hours of darkness, and you have the next 12 hours of light. That's 24 hours. It's 24 hours. Okay. So the day of preparation would be so-called Thursday and Friday morning. All right. And then Friday night, that is when the actual Sabbath will begin. Okay. so So now it says, for it was a high day, besought Pilate that their legs might be broken and that they might be taken away. So that's what they want to do, to break the legs, make sure that they're dead so that they can take the bodies away and bury them. All right. So Joseph of Arimathea, remember, he basically went to Pontius Pilate and he wanted to take the body of Christ, all right, before they broke the legs. All right, because remember that was prophecy that not one bone in his body should be broken. All right. So now let's go to the book of Luke. Luke chapter 23. So the Sabbath day did not change after the death of Christ, and this here in Luke 23 is going to also prove that. Luke chapter 23, and I'm going to read verse 51. Start at verse 51, and it says, "The same had not consented to the counsel and deeds of them. He was of Arimathea, a city of the Jews, who also himself waited for the kingdom of God. This man went unto Pilate and begged the body of Jesus, or Yahushua, and he took it down and wrapped it in linen and laid it in a sepulchre that he hewed in stone, wherein never man before it lay." So this is after the death of Christ. All right, remember this: Christ is dead; he's gone. His soul is gone from his body. So now you see that his physical body is still here. All right. So then it says, and that the day was the preparation. So this is the day of preparation before what? And the Sabbath drew nigh. So the Sabbath was approaching as well. He says, and the women also which came with him from Galilee followed after, and behold, and beheld the sepulchre, and how his body was laid. And they returned and prepared spices and ointments and rested the Sabbath day according to the commandment. So it's showing you right there, man, that they rested according to the commandment. So they did not break the Sabbath on trying to prepare the body of or rub the body of Yahweh Shai with ointments and spices and so on and so forth. So they said they were going to do that afterwards. All they did was prepare it. So then afterwards they would be able to go and actually do that. All right. So then in the next chapter, you see it dawned upon the first day of the week. Okay. So now it's talking about the morning of the first day of the week. So remember, so-called Saturday night would actually be the end of the Sabbath going into the first day. All right. Then what you would call Sunday morning, that would be the second half of the Sabbath. I mean, of the first day. All right. So that's something that Christians get mixed up, man, or they feel like they've been lied to for so long. They don't want to follow with it all. They just want to keep tradition. You know what I mean? Because it's tradition to them now to follow the Sabbath day, on the first day rather than, you know what I'm saying, how the scriptures uh tell us to follow the Sabbath. So on the seventh day, you rest, you do not work. All right. The Christians, they keep their Sunday. They still they still cook abominable foods. They still, you know what I'm saying, work upon that day. They still do all kind of madness on the Sabbath day. All right. Or their quote unquote Sabbath day. All right, sun, which they call so-called Sunday or Solis Day of the sun. All right. So now, what did Christ mean by him being the Lord of the Sabbath? So we got to understand that too. So what did he mean by him being the Lord of the Sabbath? Well, let's find out. All right, so let's go to the book of Matthew chapter 12. Let's go to the book of Matthew chapter 12 and let's start at verse 1. So then it says, at that time, Yahweh Shai went on the Sabbath day through the corn. And his disciples were a hungered and began to pluck the ears of corn and to eat. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto them, behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day. So now, what was this that the disciples were doing wrong? What was this that the disciples were doing wrong in the eyes of the Pharisees? Nothing. Remember, the Pharisees, of course, they sat in Moses' seat, but yet they were still hypocritical. All right. And they were trying to find anything, any evidence that, any evidence or any dirt on Christ and his disciples, man, so that they could kill Christ. All right. And they said, well, the best way that we could try to get him is if he violates the Sabbath day. If he violates the Sabbath day, then we can kill him. We can put him to death according to the Mosaic law, right? So that was their goal. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted Christ dead because remember, he was converting thousands of people, and he was bringing all of the people up out of that lie of the Phariseeism. All right. So now, so he said, but he said unto them, have ye not read what David did when he was a hunger, and they that were with him, right? So now he's going into the history. He's like, so have you not read what David did when he was a hunger and his men? Did you not read about that? Well, we're going to get that in a second, man. But let me deal with this corn. Let me deal with this thing with the standing ear of corn, right? So in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 23, this is what it says. All right. So it just goes to show you, man, that they were trying to they think Christ is stupid, and they're trying to nitpick on every little thing, so that they can try to kill Christ, right? Because they know once he violates the law, a law that's worthy of death. Remember, the Sabbath day, you was killed, you was stoned to death. But he said, that's why they were trying to get him the littlest things. We go, I broke the Sabbath day, I gotta die.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pharisees be sitting there, yes, thank you, he's stupid. But Christ wasn't that type of man.
Okay.
Christ wasn't no idiot. All right. So now let's read. Let's read this in Deuteronomy 23. Deuteronomy 23 and verse 5. And it says, 25, excuse me. When thou comest into the standing corn of thy neighbor, then thou mayest pluck the ears with thine hand, but thou shalt not move a sickle unto thy neighbor's standing corn. So we said, that you were able to, when you go in your neighbor's field, right, and they're standing corn, you're able to bend the ears of the corn and pluck the corn off, but you could not take a sickle to it, right, and harvest it for yourself, right? That'd be what you would call stealing. You see what I'm saying? So, that means you're taking something that does not belong to you, stealing. You see that? So now you see why this is why the Pharisees they trying to catch Christ up, okay? But Christ knowing and understanding the law, right? Check this out. So again, there was nothing wrong with the disciples taking or plucking or bending the ears of corn, right, and eating from it. They were hungry, all right. So they stayed within the law, all right. They did not take a sickle to it. Now, if one of them would have took a sickle or a knife to it, then Christ wouldn't have been able to defend them. You see that? And then Christ would have looked like a fool. You see that? Oh, look, he's allowing them. He's allowing them to take a sickle and cut off the corn. Like, no, Christ wasn't about that. So they kept the law. The disciples knew and understood the law themselves. All right. So that's why when you go back, make sure you reference those scriptures, man, those precepts. As he says, when thou comest unto the standing corn of thy neighbor, then thou mayest pluck their ears with thine hand. So they could pluck the ears with their hand, right? But thou shalt not move a sickle unto thy neighbor's standing corn. All right. So they could not move. They could not take a sickle to their neighbor's corn. All right. So now let's read on. He said, so remember, they said, why is not, excuse me. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day. So it's not like they were gathering the corn. They weren't gathering it either. You see that? But they were plucking it off of the ears of the corn. So they were eating it. You see that? And this is why Christ had to check them and let them know, man, what the hell is wrong with y'all? You ain't never read what David did when he was hungry? When he was a hunger? So now let's read. But when he said unto them, have ye not read what David did when he was a hunger, and they that were with him, how he entered into the house of God and did eat the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them that were with him, but only for the priest. Look at that. So now he told them, he's like, did you not read that? The showbread? You can find that in Leviticus 24, verses 5 through 8. And that's dealing with the showbread. I believe in Exodus 30. I mean Exodus 25 and 30. So then now let's get this in First Samuel chapter 21. First Samuel chapter 21. Pharisees got a little bit too big for their britches, man. They started trying to play the Messiah. You understand? There's a reason why he was called the Word of God. All right. So now it says in we'll start at verse 1. It says, then came David to Nob to Ahimelech the priest, and Ahimelech was afraid at the meeting of David, and said unto him, why art thou alone, and no man with thee? And David said unto Ahimelech the priest, the king hath commanded me a business, and has said unto me, let no man know anything of the business whereabout I send thee, and what I have commanded thee, and I have appointed my servants to such and such a place. Now therefore, what is under thine hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread in mine hand, or what there is present. So he's like, give me, 5 loaves of bread. I can't tell you what I'm about to do because the king told me, tell no man your work, what you're about to do. All right. Right. Or where you're going to go. So then he says, but he said, therefore, he says, now therefore, what is under thy hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread in my hand, or what there is present. So whatever you have, can you give it to me? So remember, the king sent them, just told them go. David didn't have no time to pack provisions or anything like that. He just said go now, and he had to do what the king said, or else he'd get killed.
Wait, but I think this was when he was being chased by Saul, huh?
No, no. The king gave him a command.
Oh, okay.
So now it says, and the priest, and the priest answered David and said, there is no common bread under mine hand. So he said, this is no common bread. It's no regular bread that I have in my hand. But there is hollow bread. So this is the holy bread that was made. Remember, back in Leviticus 24, all right, in verse 5. He says, so when I say Leviticus 24 and 5, that's talking about the bread, the show bread. That was unleavened bread that the priest had to make. And it had to be continued, it had to be made fresh daily. All right. And it had to be set before the Most High. Okay. So now it says, he says, but there is hollow bread if the young men have kept themselves at least from women. Right. So he's like, have you guys abstained from women? If you kept yourself from women, I can give it to you. At least from women. So he says, and David answered the priest and said unto him, of a truth, women have been kept from us about these 3 days. So you said,
not by choice, but
right.
We've been away from women.
So right, so we haven't touched a woman. So then it says, since I came out, and the vessels of the young men are holy, and the bread is in a manner common, yea, though it were sanctified this day in the vessel. So he said it says, and the bread is in a manner common, yea, though it were sanctified this day in the vessel. Right?
Blessed.
So yeah, it was blessed, but remember, it was old.
Yeah, that's why it's common.
Right. It's old bread, old showbread that is now going to be discarded. All right, because according to the law, it had to be made daily. So you just couldn't have stale bread. That's what the Most High was complaining about and getting upset with the priest about when he talks about that in the book of Malachi. You see that they lay old dingy bread, and you know what I'm saying? Like they had no more love for the Most High, man. Yeah. So it's like the Lord said it had to be made fresh daily. So then he says, so the priest gave him hollow bread, for there was no bread there but the showbread that was taken from before the Lord to put hot bread in the day when it was taken away. All right. So remember, the old bread was discarded. There was fresh bread made. All right. so it says, so yeah, that was it. So now let's go back. So now this is the history that Christ is going into. So you see that? So he says how he entered into the house of God and did eat the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat. So how was he able to eat that bread? How was he able to? Right? But then he says, neither for them which were with him, but only for the priest. So the bread was only meant for the priest to eat. So how was David able to eat that showbread? You see that? But because it was old bread. So remember, they still did not profane themselves, neither did the priest profane himself by giving them that bread, right? David wouldn't put it because it was old showbread, and they still remember they said that they were still holy. All right. They were still holy. They abstained from women. They didn't go in unto a woman or anything like that, right? So, so they were good. Okay. And there was fresh bread that was going to be made to replace that bread which the priest was about to discard. All right. So now it says, or have ye not read in the law how that on the Sabbath day the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath. How did they profane the Sabbath? How did the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath? Huh? No, I'm just saying, how did they profane the Sabbath?
They had to kill and cook sacrifices.
They had to cook the sacrifices. They had sacrifices they performed on the Sabbath day.
Yeah, because
all right.
Sacrifices weren't throughout the week. They were only on Halloween day.
Right. So no, they had sacrifices that they conducted day by day, and then they had sacrifices they conducted for the weekly Sabbath, and then they had sacrifices that they conducted for the feast days. All right. So this is what Christ is going into. He says, and are blameless. So how are they able to do this and they're blameless? You see that? Why? Because they're performing the law that was given unto them. So then he says, but I say unto you that in this place is one greater than the temple. But if ye had known what this meaneth, I will have mercy and not sacrifice, ye would not have condemned the guiltless. Right? So he said, so he's like, now he was like, if you understood is one greater than the temple, he said, if you understood what this means, you would understand that I will have mercy and not sacrifice. The Lord desires to give mercy, man. He doesn't want to sacrifice he doesn't want no damn sacrifice. The Lord has no pleasure in sacrifices. You see that? He says, and ye would have not condemned the guiltless. And guess what? They were condemning the apostles, right? For breaking the law. You see that?
For what they thought was breaking the law.
Right, exactly. For what they thought was breaking the law. Okay? For what they thought they were breaking the law, which they really weren't. You know what I mean? They were actually keeping the commandment. All right. He says, for the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath day. So he said, the Son of Man is even Lord of the Sabbath day. So he's telling you, I keep the Sabbath, brother. I do that which is lawful and right upon the Sabbath day. So Christ is not breaking it. You understand? But yet you still have to understand, like, say, for instance, when the brother got up, when the brother was healed, right? And Christ told him to get up, take your bed, man, and go to the priest. Right? So what happened? Didn't nobody, the Pharisees, they like, what are you doing? Why are you carrying your bed upon the Sabbath day? You breaking the Sabbath. But wait a minute, do you not see this man is up and he's walking? He just told you that a man healed him. He healed him. This man, this man has been crippled for almost 15 years. You see what I'm saying? Or yeah, probably since birth. And you ain't seen this man walk at all. But yet you mean to tell me you don't see the miracle of this man walking? Something that a miracle that you weren't even able to perform. This man just came to me and told me to get up. I got up. And I'm able to walk now. He was performing these miracles on the Sabbath day. Was that evil? Did he do wickedness, or did he commit righteousness? He performed righteousness. He was healing the people. They were coming to him diseased, major weaknesses or infirmities, man. Crippled hands or withered. You know what I mean? It says, man, he was healing so many people, man. It's like people was trying to come through the rafters of the synagogue just so that they could be healed. They literally lowered a man from the rafters, man. And it's man, get your brother down there, man. You gotta get him healed. And he was healed.
Scripture like that, where someone saying that withered and they prayed and it was healed again, it was a king.
Yeah, that was dealing with Jeroboam. But yeah, I mean, this is what Christ was performing. Now, this is also what he goes into. And when he departed thence, he went into their synagogue, and behold, there was a man which had his hand withered, and they asked him, saying, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath days? That they might accuse him. So they said, all right, well, let me ask you this. Is it lawful to heal upon the Sabbath day? They said, so they wanted to accuse this man. But every time Christ came at him, man, this is what he did. He went back to the law. Watch this. He says, and he said unto them, what man shall there be among you that shall have one sheep, and it fall into a pit on the Sabbath day? Will ye not lay hold on it and lift it out? So this is a living, breathing creature, right? This is your lifestyle. It fell into a pit. Right. It fell into a pit. It's bleeding its heart out, right? And it's letting you it needs help. So you mean to tell me you not gonna save that? You're not gonna save that animal's life? You're not gonna save that animal's life? You're not gonna lift it out? Watch what he says. How much then is a man better than a sheep? So now, how much is not a man better than a sheep? Huh? You say y'all gonna do it for a sheep. Y'all lift the sheep up out of a pit, but you won't sit there and help a man up out of a pit. It's a Sabbath day, brother. You better stand there and rest. What kind of crap is that?
I can imagine someone actually saying that.
I bet. He says, how much is a man better than a sheep? Wherefore is it lawful to do well on the Sabbath day? He said, is it lawful to do well on the Sabbath day? Yes, it's lawful to do well upon the Sabbath day. That's what they were missing, man. That's what they weren't understanding. You know what I mean? They had the history of the Maccabees. They knew that, man, you know, you just couldn't lay down. If your enemy trying to come and kill you, you just couldn't lay down for your oppressor and allow him to kill you. You see that? And remember, you know, the prophets nowadays, you know what I'm saying, they go out into the streets and they prophesy, you know, remember, they're out there trying to heal the people because we know that's when people are generally out the most, but on the weekend. You see that? Everybody's fresh, looking fly, man, and you know, that's when they have all of the major events. Brothers gotta go out there, man, and get them sheep. Get that one out of 1,000. Get those two out of 10,000. You see that? Most High out of 10,000 people, man, 3 the Most High may be calling. You see that?
And that's the
you know, I mean, that's just how it is, man. But you see, Christ. This is how Christ had to. This is how Christ had to correct the Pharisees, man. He's like, y'all missing the whole point of this. It's about mercy, man. It's not about offering no sacrifice for your sin. It's about you receiving mercy, forgiveness. No, yeah, exactly. That's it. It's just all about the aspect of what was basically benefiting them, you know. But that's why Christ had to cut them up, man, constantly, all the time, man, because they were just going off. Let's go to Mark. Basically, Mark is going into the same thing, just gives you a different look into Matthew's 12. Mark chapter 2 and verse 23. And it says, and it came to pass that when he went through the cornfields on the Sabbath day, and his disciples began as they went to pluck the ears of corn. And the Pharisees said unto him, behold, why do they on the Sabbath day that which is not lawful? And he says, and he said unto them, have ye never read what David did when he had need and was in hunger, he and they that were with him? So now showing you, said that he had need. David had need. David was hungry. You see that? So what was the priest to sit there and turn him away? Why would the priest sit there and turn him away? The priest was working with him. The priest was there he was like, he helped him. He's like, all right, you know what? I don't, you know, have you kept yourself from women? At least from women? Like, yeah, we did. And these brothers, they're holy too. They set apart too. You know? So he's like, all right, well, you know what? I'm gonna give you this old showbread that I got in my hands. Here, take this, eat it. You see that? He doesn't say, no, y'all ain't even getting this, man. Get the hell out of here. He didn't say that to David. So he said because he knew that he was in need, he didn't have no food. You know what I mean? Why would a man that has something come and ask you for what he already has? You see that? So it says, and they that were with him, how he went into the house of God in the days of Abiathar, the high priest, and did eat the showbread. which is not lawful to eat but for the priest, and gave also to them which were with him. And he said unto them, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for us, right? Because it was given to us to what? To rest and to worship the divine creator, man, for his magnificence. All right. For him to hear our prayers. You see that? Him to open his ear unto us. All right. So he says, therefore the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. You see that? He's Lord also of the Sabbath, man. He said, I keep the Sabbath. We out here, we gonna heal the people. You see that? So his disciples did nothing wrong, man, but y'all sitting here accusing men that are faultless. So let's go to, you can write this one down, Exodus 29 and 32. That's dealing with the how the old showbread was discarded. All right. So then we already went into that. Let's go to the book of Luke 6 and 9. Book of Luke, chapter 6 and verse 9. So there were many customs that the Pharisees had, man. The things that they could not do on the Sabbath day. I'll pull some of those things up too in a minute. So let's get through the scriptures. So it says here, Luke 6 and 9. I'm in chapter 9. Excuse me. So it says, then said Yahushua unto them, I will ask you one thing. Is it lawful on the Sabbath days to do good or to do evil, to save life or to destroy it? So he's asking them, okay, I ask you this. Is it lawful on the Sabbath days to do good or evil? Simple. Simple. Now check this out. He says, and looking around about upon them all, he said unto the man, stretch forth thine hand. And he did so, and his hand was restored whole as the other. Look at that. It says that he said, stretch forth your hand. It says, and his hand was restored like the other. What? What? So this is the miracle. These are the miracles, man, that Christ was performing on Sabbath day. He was healing people, and they weren't giving praise to him. They were giving praise to God, the Most High, the Creator. You see that? You see that? So that's why, man, you look at it, man. People is full of people, man. Especially those that sin this truth, man. They full of it, man. They full of it. You see that? You don't want to believe in the Yahweh Shai and all of that stuff, or Yahweh Shai didn't exist and all of that BS, man. You better go somewhere with that. You know what I mean? You sit here and you look for fault. You look for fault. You know what I'm saying? Right. This is it's just crazy, man. But nonetheless, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. Why? Because someone's gonna have the last laugh. It's not gonna be me. He watching, he listening, he looking, he taking note. That's all we need. That's all we need to know. You sitting there burning with your wife because y'all don't believe. He that believeth not is already condemned. That's it. That's what you know. The scriptures say what they say, man. That's why they try to get rid of it. That's why they try to get rid of the second half of this book. You know what I mean? You see, they got rid of the middle portion of it, which is called the Apocrypha. Now you sit here, you trying to get rid of the rest of the New Testament, saying it's fictitious, it's fake. You know what I mean? There's no historical accuracy. There are like 1,000 different copies of the New Testament. Well, shit, you got 1,000 different writers. Excuse my language, but you got 1,000 different type of writers too. You see what I'm saying? Right. So, you basically Old Testament trying to get rid of trying to get rid of the New Testament, and then you got New Testament cats trying to get rid of the Old Testament. I mean, instead of having that balance with it, you know what I mean? But like I said, only one will have the last laugh, and he's the one who's coming to bring judgment. All right. So just as he brought judgment upon Egypt, he's gonna bring judgment upon America. Period. So it says, and looking round about upon them all, he said unto the man, stretch forth thine hand, and he did so, and he and his hand was restored as the other, and they were filled with madness and communed one with another what they might do to Yahweh Shai. So they was peed. He did what? He just his hand, right? But I'm gonna pull some other stuff up too. It's gonna be like you're gonna be like, wow, they really was hating on him for healing on the Sabbath day, right? But that's why Christ talked about the tradition of your elders, your oral law. You see that? That's what your fathers, you know what I'm saying, were condemning, healing upon the Sabbath day. But they really got that custom out of Babylon. You see that? You can't go to see the physician. You dying, but you can't go see the physician. Oh, you just gonna die.
That makes no sense.
You see what I'm saying? He says that's what Christ was trying to let them know, man. Y'all not making no sense. So it says, and it came to pass in those days he went out into the mountains to pray and continue all night in prayer. Oh, that was it. But so now let's go to Mark 3. Mark 3 gives you the same type of account. Mark chapter 3, verse 2. So then it says, and he entered again into the synagogue, and there was a man there which had a withered hand. And they watched him whether he would heal him on the Sabbath day, that they might accuse him. You see that? So they was looking at him cold. They was looking at him hard because they was like to see whether he was going to heal him on the. He's going to heal him on the Sabbath day. Watch this.
And he did it on purpose.
Watch. If he heal him, we gonna make sure that we got enough evidence, man, to execute this man. That's all they was trying to do, man. They was trying to find a way to kill Christ. He's doing something good. You're sitting there doing evil. You see that? You plotting to kill a man that's trying to do right by his people. You sitting there oppressing the people, man, and laying on them burdens, man, that they can't even bear, that you wouldn't even lift a finger to do. So who's doing evil? Who's doing good? That's why he said, woe unto them. That's why the scripture said, woe unto them that call good evil and evil good. You see that? So now it says, verse 3, and he said unto the man which had the withered hand, stand forth. And he said unto him, is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath days, or to do evil, to save life or to kill it? But they held their peace. He asked him a question, but he was like, they be quiet. That's why they knew. They understood, to do good. He just did good. He just healed a man that had a withered hand. They sitting there. He says, and when he had looked round about on them with anger, being grieved for the hardness of their hearts, he said unto the man, stretch forth thine hand. So he was like, man, they grieved you outside, man, to see the hardness of their hearts, to see how stubborn they were. So it says, and he stretched it out, and his hand was restored whole as the other. And the Pharisees went forth and straightway took counsel with the Herodians against him, how they might destroy him. The Herodians were were actually Israelites that were under Herod. So, yeah, basically. So they were like his little they were like his little BITCHs, pretty much. or his little chicks. All right, that's the best way I can put it. So it says, coons, whatever you want to call them, coons.
Mm-hmm.
He says, but Yahushua withdrew himself with his disciples to the sea, and a great multitude from Galilee followed him, and from Judea. So you gotta think about it. This man was doing so much evil. Why are all of these people following this man? Because they know he's doing right. All right. He's showing them things, man, that no one else has shown you since the days of the old prophets, right? You hear about Elijah healing, bringing a boy back to the dead, calling upon the most, but he called upon the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying? To bring the soul of that child back. You see that? Yahweh said, she sleep, because he had already been given the power. She sleep. Look, she's dead. She sleep. And she wake up, the child wake up yawning, and they just. That's why there was a division amongst the Pharisees. Man, how in the world can a man that has a devil do such powerful miracles? You see what I'm saying? With Satan, right? With Satan, it's only right. With Satan, it's only an illusion. But with the Most High, man, it's literal power. So, and he bestowed that power upon his disciples as well. You see that? So, they were doing greater works than the prophets of old. You see that? So it says, so then of course you could write down Exodus 21 and 33. That's dealing with saving life on the Sabbath. I mean, excuse me, that's the law of saving life. All right. So this is the law that Christ was pulling out. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, 21:33. So it's like, what happens if a sheep or your sheep or your goat fall into a ditch? You're not gonna help. You're not gonna help that animal out. If that's your neighbor's, then you're not gonna help him. So remember that law goes into that. Actually, we can go there real quick. Exodus 21. Exodus 21 and 33, and it says, if a man shall open a pit, or if a man shall dig a pit and not cover it, and an oxen or an ass fall therein, the owner of the pit shall make it good, meaning he has to pay a restitution, right? And give money unto the owner of them and the dead beast, right? So hold on. He says, oh yeah, here we go, 35. And if one man's ox hurt another, that he died. No, that's not it. What was that? Shit. 21, 21 and 33. Or the exit 22 and 33. Oh, 22 and 30.
It's 23. You know, 34.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, here we go. He said, well, this is helping the neighbor. But he says, if thou meet thine enemy's ox or his ass go astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him again. If thou see the ass of him that hateth thee lying under a burden, and wouldest forbear to help him, thou shalt surely help him. Right. So that basically goes into it too. Dang, what was that one?
But that shows you that, like, even your enemies you're supposed to help.
Yeah, that's
not
true.
Not just people who you want to deal with.
That's right. That's right. It was one that. Hold on.
No, I think it's Deuteronomy 22:4.
Hold on. Deuteronomy what?
22:4.
Yep, bingo. So it says, "Thou shalt not." It says, "Thou shalt not see thy brother's ass or his oxen fall down by the way, and hide thyself from them." You see that? So he says, if you see it happen, he's like, don't hide yourself. Don't try to like, oh man, damn, I don't want to help him. He said, don't do that. He says, "Thou shalt surely help him lift him up again." Right. So, just so that's the law that Christ used on the widows right here. I think it was Exodus 23:5. Yep, that's the precept that he gives here. Let me go back. Yeah, 23:5. Yep, it was the same thing. So yeah, so of course, that was the law. You can write write those two down. I'm gonna definitely get that back right there. Two and so, then you can write down First Maccabees 22:34 to 30. Yeah, First Maccabees chapter 2, 32 to 34. So you had the brothers that died, keeping the Sabbath day.
Yeah, that wouldn't fight.
They would not fight. But then you see later on, they practically, they took counsel and said, we're going to defend ourselves. But the law says we can defend ourselves. So then you can write down Luke 13 and 14, chapter 13, verse 14.
Mm-hmm.
So that really shows you, man, that you could not heal upon the Sabbath day. They did not play that.
You couldn't heal?
You could not heal on the Sabbath day. Let's read it. Let's actually read it.
But Yahushua healed when he's trying to heal.
Right, but the Pharisees, you know what I mean? They said you cannot heal. It was like six.
But that's a law they made.
Exactly. Now check this out. This is chapter 13 and verse 14. And it says this. I'll read from verse 11, or actually verse 10. And he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And behold, there was a woman which had a spirit of infirmity 18 years, and was bowed together, and could in no wise lift up herself. And when Yahushua saw her, he called her to him and said unto her, Woman, thou art loose from thine infirmities. So he told her, like these by the words, Woman, thou art loose from thy infirmities. And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight and glorified God. So did she glorify Christ?
Mm-hmm.
She glorified the Most High. And the rulers of the synagogue answered with indignation, because that Yahushua had healed on the Sabbath day, and said unto the people, There are 6 days which men ought to work. In them therefore come and be healed, and not on the Sabbath day. And then watch this. Check this out. And this is what Christ had to say to them in his rebuttal. He says, The Lord then answered him and said, you see how it says the Lord? It said, The Lord then answered and said, Thou hypocrite, do not each one of you on the Sabbath day loose his ox or his ass from the stall and lead him away to watering? And ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan hath bound, these 18 years, be loosed from the bonds on the Sabbath day? So he asked him a question. Should she not? Should she not have been freed from the bondage of Satan? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why he sat there, man, and told him, man, he's like, yeah, y'all some damn hypocrites. That's what he said, you hypocrite. You gonna make sure that you loose your ox from the stall and go take it to a watering hole, right? And give it water. If it's really thirsty, you gonna give it water, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then you mean to tell me that this woman that had been bound with an infirmity, been bound by Satan 18 years, she can't be loose on the Sabbath day from hers?
She gotta wait another
You see what I'm
day.
saying? Yeah, she don't have to wait another day. She can receive the
Also,
healing
send her
today.
away.
You know what I mean? But that's what they wanted. And that's why he called him a hypocrite. He says, and when he had said these things, all his adversaries were ashamed.
It should have been.
Look at that. So they like, you know what? Damn, he got a point. Damn. No, he's right. You can't speak. You can't say nothing against it because you know he's on point with it. He's right. So then he says, and all the people rejoiced for the glorious thing that was done by him. So they rejoiced. They gave praise to the Most High, man. They gave praise to the Most High, man, because of the glorious thing. You see that? So, so I mean, that's that's just what it is, man.
Mhm.
You know. So, like, did Christ change anything about the Sabbath day? Absolutely not. You know what I mean? Did he tell the people to break the Sabbath day? Did he tell people it's okay to eat pork? He didn't say any of those things. Did he say it's okay to commit fornication and all that stuff? He didn't say any of that.
People think
See
that's
that?
okay because that's fine.
No, man, that ain't okay because he even told the woman with the 5 husbands. You know what I'm saying? You know, he told her, go get your husband. You know? He was like, she was like, I don't have one. He said, yeah, you're right. You did say that because you know, because you a whore. You know? But he didn't condone that. That's why he let her. That's why he let her know, man. That's why she went back. He said, "Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet."
Yeah.
You know, how did you know I wasn't with him? Because you ain't gotta. Whores don't. You can see a whore clear as day. Yep, that's true. That's so true. Well, that's another conversation for another day. I'm gonna let my boy Nick handle all of that.
They wear nice disguises.
I'm gonna let my man Nick handle all of that, man. He go into the correction of the woman in a heartbeat, man.
He put videos up.
But yeah, but anyways, with that we say shalom and definitely check us out